folks, we finally made it back to make another episode of Unfinished Business Television, the July edition. So while politically this country might be going in the dark, for right now, movie news and commentary. So hopefully this brings some sunshine to your day or, gives you something to do. So as always, I am your host, Jeffrey Galashaw. And with me, as always, is my co-host, Andre Joseph of AJ Epics.
Happy Independence Day weekend, everybody.
And we are here we're going to start out with, obviously, news because we have no new trailers this week of stuff, at least that we haven't already talked about. Next month, I am sure we'll have some good ones for you. So to start off with, the name that keeps coming up, and so far, I think this is our third month talking about him, Ezra Miller has gotten in trouble yet again. He is on the run because an order of protection to stay away from an underage girl of 12 years old has been sent out, and the cops can't find him. Plus, the parents of another girl say he has groomed their underage daughter. And also, apparently, that he has a farm where he's letting a single mother stay, and her children are growing up on that farm. And obviously, that doesn't look like a good look. At this point, I believe DC is done with him, at least as far as any future movies. The interesting aspect here is you have a $200 million movie and you don't know what to do with it because obviously if you put it in theaters, does it look like you're condoning the star's behavior, who can't obviously go on a press tour for this movie? Mm-hmm. And any sequels you might have set up, you're either going to have to recast or, luckily for them, Flash comes in many different interpretations, but you're totally going to have to change everything around. It's sort of like putting out Captain America and then deciding we've got to do multiverses already because we can't have the same actor. And are they going to just dump it onto streaming and try to see what money they can get off of that? What is your thoughts on the situation, Andre?
The whole situation is one giant cluster mess of a botania, is the best way I could put it. Warner Brothers, the new people, David Zaslav, they have inherited a big giant mess because the previous regime was afraid to take on somebody that was representative of the non-binary community, and they blinded that ideology with the other things that were going on with this guy, and they didn't take it seriously. Every time he got into a fight or attacked a woman on the street, they're just like, oh, it'll go away. It's just, publicity as usual in Hollywood, but now it's getting uglier. I think there's more shoes that are going to drop. And, I agree that they need to cut ties from him for future movies. They did the right call on that. But the Flash movie itself, it's a damned if you do or damned if you don't situation. I've been saying before, they should reshoot, but understandably, it's $200 million. He's playing multiple different Flashes in this film. So it's not like with Christopher Plummer, where he had like a handful of scenes and you could just reshoot it in like a week. Here, you have to literally erase this guy from 2.5, 3 hours, or whatever this movie is. And what's the sad shame in this is the fact that you have Michael Keaton coming out of his exile from Batman to play this part at 70 years old. The young girl that's playing Supergirl, this is like her big debut of sorts. And a crew that probably, put a lot of time and effort into making this work. And this kid is screwing it up for everybody. At the end of the day, you can't just hinge all this on a guy that's likely going to end up in prison at some point. It's just, it's got to be business or your morals come first here. And I don't know what they're going to do. I'm glad I'm not in that situation.
Well, this is definitely a worst case scenario for any movie in the history, because, I mean, when you had at least the Shia LaBeouf thing, it was either he was playing more supporting roles, or it was more of an independent film where, you know, it didn't, even though he was the name in the movie, you didn't really have to worry about losing too much money. Whereas this is like a tentpole film, and it's like, what do we, you know, like you said, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. You know, where are you going to turn to?
It's not like with, you know, the whole Amber Heard situation where she's only a supporting character in Aquaman. So I know there's no official decision being made with that whole mess too, but her character could easily be recast, or you just cut her down enough where she's like Jar Jar Binks in Attack the Clones. So be there like 2 seconds and then you don't even remember she's in it. But this is just like, this kid's front and center, and, you know, young kids are going to be seeing this movie. Do you really want those kids to be looking up to this guy, or whatever they want to call Ezra Miller?
Goes by they. Ezra Miller goes by they or they.
It's still tongue-tying for me.
Well, it's interesting that you brought up the Amber Heard situation, because my thing is pretty much what you said. If you don't like her, you know, my thing is keep her role the same it is in part 2. We know there's going to be a part 3, then just recast the role.
Right.
Or I feel no reason to cut down her part at all, because my thing is what happened between her and Johnny Depp has nothing to do with the world and how it works. So in other words, whether or not she's guilty or innocent in the accusations of their case, that is between them. That has nothing to do with the quality of work that she does in the movie, or it's not even a political belief. So I like her or not, I have no problem with her being in Aquaman 2 or any further sequels, because it becomes like this. How many people are really going to see Aquaman for Amber Heard? Who are staying away from that movie because of Amber Heard?
Clearly nobody's hiring her like that, not like she was when she first started.
Exactly. So that's why my thing was, this was her big break. You know, she hasn't done anything where I'm just like, she can never be cast again. And I mean, I don't want to see her working at a supermarket either. You know, she's come this far, at least in her career. Whether she's a good person or not, I personally don't know, but she hasn't done anything to offend me personally. And, you know, I say that as somebody who likes, you know, Johnny Depp's body of work, you know, so I have nothing personally against him either. If anything, it's just, to me, more of a gossip case treated as news that is having ramifications for no real reason.
Yeah.
At least that's how I look at it. So, and, you know, and I mean, I find that, you know, between WB's having a hell of a year next year.
They got their work cut out for them.
You know, I'm just glad I'm not the executive in charge of these movies. You know, I mean, or for Aquaman 2, they can use the controversy to their advantage. You know, I mean, it never hurt films in the past. Look at Cleopatra. You know, advertise the movie that almost bankrupted a studio. 20,000 extras used, you know. I say, hey, let's see if it works out. I mean, think of Titanic, how much bad word of mouth that had early on, and then ended up becoming a classic. But, you know, that's also a teenage heartthrob movie. So the less said about that, the better. For our next story, Disney and its infamous history of making live action movies out of their animated films has decided to do another one with Hercules. It's produced by the Russo brothers and directed by Guy Ritchie. I guess they're like, hey, he did a satisfactory job with Aladdin, so why not? I like Hercules, the animated movie. It's one of, you know, canceled James Woods' better voice roles. I wonder, is it going to be a musical again, or is it going to be, I guess, more like serious and action? Because if you're going to do that, didn't we get that kind of with the Rock movie of Hercules by Brett Ratner? So that's why I'm like, it makes more sense to keep it, you know, a little more goofy and as a musical. Not that it's not something I really want to see, but I mean, I guess it's better than them trying to do it as a Broadway musical. I think I'm shocked that Guy Ritchie is taking it because low key he has been making some really good movies, studio wise, usually more crime movies, but I guess when he wants to stretch his blockbuster, he's like, let me do something that people will never think of. I know, I'll go with Disney. And is he Disney's Takia Waititi? How Star Wars is planning on like almost handing over the trilogy to him, or the Star Wars franchises to him.
I find it funny that he goes from Aladdin to Wrath of Man with Jason Statham. So it's like, yeah, he's got the best worlds. He could do a kids movie, then he could do a Jason Statham action movie. That's pretty cool to have as a career. I don't mind it. I actually never saw Hercules when I was a kid because that was at the point where I started going to high school. I wasn't really going and seeing Disney movies like that. Like you said, I think it definitely needs to go into like the goofy musical route rather than trying to be like the Rock's Hercules movie or even the Lou Ferrigno Hercules movie. Just something that's kind of light and fun, and try to cast somebody who's not The Rock or Chris Hemsworth, somebody that's out of the ordinary to play Hercules, and then maybe you'll have something unique and fun for the kids.
Well, my thing is, where with Guy Ritchie's career, I figure maybe he does a cute family film, then he takes out all his like guilty pleasures out on the more action-oriented films where it's like, yes, we can curse in this movie. Yes, I can show blood, So it's sort of like day job and then his freaky night job,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next on the news bracket, trust me, folks, we don't have that many. We have Lee Wannell, who infamously co-wrote the first few Saw movies and wrote and directed the Invisible Man remake recently, is in talks to direct the Green Hornet and Cato movie. Maybe it's because of my age and I'm of a certain generation where that was kind of like just classic television. When they first came up with the Green Hornet with Seth Rogen, I was just like, oh, they'll just remake anything, or try to update it. And no offense, who was at the studio who was like, we need to give the Green Hornet another chance and make another movie? So unless they're really going to put like Nicolas Cage's interpretation of a Rastafarian as the villain in this movie, I am not really that interested in this movie. If the trailer looks good, I will give it a try, but I can't say I'm jazzed for this project. And
neither am I. I mean, the Seth Rogen one pretty much kind of ruined it for me. And I think, yes, there is some room for a Green Hornet redo that could be serious and straightforward rather than comedic like what Rogen did. I have the sense they're going to try to do some wokeness here and try to maybe make the Green Hornet black, make Cato into a Asian woman, just try to switch it up a bit so it's not too much like the original show. That's my sense of it, because it's not like, I don't think there's, outside of Bruce Lee fans, a lot of hardcore Green Hornet fans are going to be like, if they change this, I'm not going to go and watch it. I think they're going to take liberties with this one this time.
The only way I could see this being more successful, like you said, woke, or maybe acknowledge Cato does most of the work action-wise, and, the Green Hornet's more the detective in the front. I mean, it could work, but this might be, I don't believe I'm going to reference this movie. Maybe it would be best done like how The Spirit was done, where you make it kind of a period piece, but more of a hard R-rated period piece, and maybe make it more into, since Netflix loves to do this, a series instead of, we're just going to make 1 2-hour movie of this. Though if they can bring back Cameron Diaz, that would be interesting out of retirement. She could be the glue between the two movies. And I'm just saying, give it a chance. I'm trying to make this movie more interesting already. Also, for our next story, pardon me, for our next story, and for all of you counting, this is our final story for the week. Speaking of Netflix, they are remaking Spy Kids. Well, not rebooting, I forget. I keep wanting to say reboot. They're rebooting Spy Kids with Robert Rodriguez writing and directing with his son, Racer. The new Spy Kids won't be a sequel, but will take place in the same Spy Kids universe. So I suspect cameos from all those superstars who were in those old Spy Kids movie. But the new movie will star Zachary Levi, who seems to be making a really good PG-13 career for himself. No offense. I like Zachary Levi. And Gina Rodriguez, who seems to be like almost under contract to streaming services because that seems to be where all her movies go. Look, I saw the first Spy Kids in theaters. I don't have children. I saw Spy Kids 2 on cable. I never got around to seeing any of the other movies. So I'm like, I mean, good for it if it can keep continuing it for a next generation, but I will admit I have very little interest in this.
Yeah, I'm like, they already tried to do a reboot. Remember with Jessica Alba and Joel McHale, where it's like they were former Spy Kids, now their kids become Spy Kids. This is Rodriguez almost as if he's running out of ideas. And, he's a hero of mine, but lately, especially after Book of Boba Fett, he's been kind of turning me off with some of his style and approach to the work that he does. And I feel like, do something different. You don't have to do Desperado again, but just give us something else than doing more Spy Kids or, that Pedro Pascal movie he did for Netflix. Kids are not getting into that stuff like they used to. They want more Stranger Things type shows and movies. They don't want, the crappy looking Spy Kid movies with the crappy effects. Give it up.
Well, see, when it comes to Robert Rodriguez, he reminds me of Michael B. Jordan, his career in Aspect, where it's like, you make some great originals, but then you keep making sequels that no one asked for to these things,
right.
And it's like, and then when you do something original, it's like, oh my God, that was like a breath of fresh air. And then you're like, oh, that was fun. Now back to what I was doing before, And
that's the thing. Both, I would say, Robert Rodriguez as a director and Michael B. Jordan as an actor are too talented to be doing follow-ups and reboots of, stuff that was already a hit yesteryear. Make your mark doing something more original, and you get more respect that way.
Well, see, I think you just pitched a perfect project. The two of them should work on something original, and then maybe they'll get their best work out of each other.
They could make a good movie together. I would take that seriously.
See, and I have a feeling Danny Trejo will be involved no matter what.
Why not?
So that is the end of the news segment of the show, guys. Yay! I know some of you are like, yes, finally, reviews. So now we are going to go with all of our reviews, which will be quite a few. And most of them can be found on streaming because for all the Top Guns and the Men movie out there, there's just nothing that really is capturing the eye that is making me be like, I've got to leave the house for this, or I've got to see this in a theater. Elvis, maybe. We'll see. I don't know. And I'm on the fence. Maybe The Black Phone. We'll see. Again, next month you might get some big screen exclusives, but you also might get some rather streaming big titles. So let's start off with a little ditty. Sorry, I didn't mean to be so loud with that. A movie called Master that came out on Amazon Prime, I believe. It is written and directed by Mariama Diallo, and it stars Regina Hall, one of my favorites. And in this film, 3 women strike to find their place at an elite Northwestern university when anonymous racist attacks target a black freshman who insists she is being haunted by ghosts. Each woman must determine where the real menace lies. This is an interesting title, but it's one of those titles or movies where there's a lot of political discourse going on in this film, and it seems like a ghost story is kind of shoehorned in there to make it seem like it's something else, to maybe attract more viewers. And it works theoretically, but it also doesn't work as a viewer 100%, because by the end, you're wondering, what the hell? It has some powerful scenes and some powerful reveals, but by the end, I guess personally, I was just like, it's sort of like that would have been an interesting story to read, but watching it on screen, I don't know if it had the effect it was supposed to have on me. Andre, how did you feel about the film?
Same as you. When I first started watching it, I was really like gripped into the story. It was reminding me of a film that I just did, and I was getting those vibes of like Get Out meets virtually any movie where you have racial issues in the school system. But at a certain point, yeah, it started getting a little too on the nose with its themes, a little too preachy. The whole big twist with the light-skinned professor who's constantly giving the girl bad grades over her paper, like her whole reveal about her family history just felt like it was shoehorned in. And by the end of it, where it's like this gigantic reveal for Regina Hall's character to realize what institution she's in, it's like, guys, you're throwing in way too much into what could have been a very simple but effective ghost story, where you could still weave in those themes, but it's like you're trying to drag everything into the kitchen sink, probably based on emotion more so than logical storytelling. And that's where it fell short to me by the time it was over. It felt like, what the hell did I just get myself into? You started out great, it was strong, I was like interested in these two characters, and then it started going all over the place, trying to like instill a message that really wasn't concise.
Yeah, because by the end, you kind of feel drained already, because it's taking all these twists and turns, and you're already trying to link everything yourself. And then when the film says, oh, this has to do with this has to do with this, you're just like, oh my God, I've like gone through all these gymnastics to like totally understand this movie. And it's a shame, because it's a film, I think if it could more decide what it wanted to be, had all the power in the world, It kind of reminds me of what I guess Candyman, the reboot, was trying to go for. But I think this one was definitely more artistically done. And it's a movie also that unfortunately goes under the title. Not every film has to have every emotion in it, but this is also just a very joyless movie, where you kind of, by the end, hate most of the characters. Yeah. The only like innocent ones that you can stand, one doesn't quite make it till the end, and the other is like left, but what are they supposed to do now? Because one thing that I think stays strong is the ending, when she's on the campus and she decides to, I guess, go home, and then the officer all of a sudden kind of profiles her, and she's supposed to be like the dean of this school, and you're telling me the school security officer doesn't even recognize her. And that kind of shows how no matter what you get, no matter how much success you get, unfortunately, as a minority, particularly an African American, you will always be seen a certain way, like you don't belong. And that is why when she walks up at the end, her last line when she walks off pretty much encapsulates the movie,
I just think there's so many people that ever since Jordan Peele Get Out, they're trying to do just like he did, take a genre like a horror genre and then inject all the racial tension and themes into the story, and they're not doing it as effectively as he did with that film.
Well, I guess because unfortunately it seems like every story that comes up with race tends to also be a horror story in itself, but then they have to inject supernatural elements or sci-fi elements again to more attract a more universal audience, let's say, cross over more.
Right.
And, I also liked, that you have such like esteemed actors other than Regina Hall. You have, hold on, sorry, me with names. I like that they had, it's not Bruce McGill, but I
Bruce
can't
Alden.
remember the name of the actor. But, him in a smaller supporting role. And, it also even showed kind of, I guess, peer pressure when it came to her and her roommates and other African-American students. And, and even how, even when guys were interested in her, physically and sexually, how even that predatory behavior came about in Race 2, the way they would speak to her, and this, like the scene where they're all singing along to a song with the N-word, and, and they're all screaming it like it's, okay, and like it's a rallying theme almost. So like I said, I really wanted to like this film. I just feel like in the end, it never quite came together.
Yeah.
But I would like to see the director's next film and see, what they come up with and, just as strong. So I personally didn't quite, it didn't make it for me, but it's a film I would suggest to people to see what they think, because I don't think it's a total failure.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to say about Master?
Yeah, I still would recommend it, like you said. But everybody's gonna have a different opinion. I'm pretty much in the category of I thought they were trying to do too much, and I do think the director has talent. So I would be looking forward to see what else they would do.
Yes. So like I said, you can catch Master on Amazon Prime. It's worth a look. It's not something I can say was fluff or mindless or just meant to be entertainment. It's something that will definitely make you think. And of course, Regina Hall gives another strong, powerful performance, my Black Queen. So that is Master. Next up, we're going to go a little lighter, even though it's kind of a horror film. And we're going to talk about a movie that came out a few months ago that we forgot to ever mention. And it's a little movie by the name of Fresh, directed by Mimi Cave. This film starts off as kind of a romance or romantic comedy of sorts. And spoiler alert, so avoid listening or skipping this review because we got to talk about the spoilers. It then ends up into kind of a body trafficking movie where we find out that the lead woman, she thinks she found her dream man, and then finds out that actually he does only want her for her body so that he can chop it up and sell off her body parts for cannibals. So, yes. So, it's more of a horror comedy, but also a really messed up, I'm trying not to curse like Andre, a really messed up way of looking at modern dating and relationships. I'll give the movie credit. It did offer a lot of surprises as it went along. It doesn't always succeed in how smart it thinks it is, but I found it very enjoyable, I found it fun. I wouldn't say as thought-provoking as it wants to probably be. And I did not see Normal People, the television series, the lead Daisy Edgar Jones starred in, that got her, notoriety. But I will say she was effective here, and she kind of reminds me of Dakota Johnson when you watch her on screen. And Sebastian Stan, Bucky Barnes, as always, he transforms himself while still looking the same. But I enjoyed his performance in his kind of American Psycho-ish, but making more sense role. And I really liked, I think her name is Janika Gibbs, who plays Daisy Edgar Jones' best friend, who is supposedly the smart character and no nonsense. And even she gets pulled into this deeper than she wants to be. And one of my favorite scenes is when you have, I guess, a guy she hooks up with who looks like he's gone through all this detective work and gonna be the hero. Soon as he hears a scream, he's like, "Nope,"
Mhm.
and just leaves, and you never hear or see from him again. And I think a lot of us were hoping that's kind of what Jordan Peele's new movie Nope was gonna be like, but now we kind of know it's a little more about aliens. But either way, Andre, what did you think of Fresh? And
So I went into Fresh really not knowing much of anything. In fact, I was told like not to read any spoilers on it. So, the way it starts, like you said, you're thinking, something creepy is going to happen with this girl as she's going on these dates and then meets Sebastian Stan. And it's like the typical boy meets girl story. And then he pulls a Bill Cosby and I'm thinking, oh no, here we go. And then we get to like the credits, like a half hour into the movie, which is already like, wow, that's a new world record right there. And then to find out that this guy really is kidnapping girls and selling their body parts. So I guess maybe because I was getting vibes of the movie Parents with Randy Quaid, just the connection with the cannibalism part. I really liked this movie. It was funny, it was dark, it was definitely disgusting, but it hit all the right notes and twisted up things that you think you would normally expect in a genre like this, and they kind of turn it on its head. And maybe the only thing that kind of still bothers me, we're kind of getting into a little bit of the ending here, the employer that I guess is coming to pick up the stuff, or like the assistant, like that old guy. There was like the one guy they didn't kill at the end, and I was wondering what happened with that guy. Was he like the limo driver to Sebastian Stan or something like that? He just flat out disappeared from the movie.
Well, I smell sequel maybe there. Well, I also liked the role that his wife plays into all of this.
Yeah, you didn't see that coming.
Exactly. So I enjoyed that aspect, even though, like you said, early in the movie, it seems a little bit more, wanting to say something about dating. And I was worried, oh no, is this going to be like a battle of the sexes movie throw? Because like you, I went into it blind. I knew that they said something happens between the beginning and the end that totally changes the movie. But that was as far as I went in information. And I will say he didn't pull a total Bill Cosby because, he got to know the girl first. And then invited her away. Wasn't some girl he just met and then, hey, have a drink. Uh-oh. And
Joe Pudding.
Exactly. Even though I enjoyed the film, I guess my little nitpick is that I feel like Sebastian Stan's character should have been a little smarter to her seductions. Like, he should have figured, of course she's going to say all this just so she could get out. So it would have been interesting if he had that kind of upper hand, like knowing she's probably playing this just so she can escape, but then somehow maybe eventually believing her, or somehow she still overpowers him to, try to make her escape. But that's a nitpick. It's something I would highly recommend because even when you see the advertisements, it's not something that screams out to you must see. So it just looks like, oh, there's another one of these like Hulu movies. This is something I will even go so far, even though it's obvious they had a low budget, this would have been something that would have been really fun to watch on the big screen.
Yeah. It should have come out like on Halloween, and I would have enjoyed it then.
Exactly. If not that, it's like a really good prolonged episode of a Tales from the Crypt type anthology.
Yes.
Yeah,
it totally has the Tales from the Crypt vibe.
Exactly. Now, if they would have said like Tales from the Crypt presents Fresh, unfortunately, you would have kind of known, oh, there's a twist coming somewhere. Mm-hmm. But I think more people would have seen it. And I think this is a film that really does deserve to be seen.
Yes.
Okay, so that is our review of Fresh, which obviously we both recommend for people to go see. Next up, now we're going to go on what we can call the family track. So we are going to talk about the film Metal Lords that came out this year on Netflix. This film, I will admit, I watched on a whim because I really like the name Metal Lords, and I'm iffy when it comes to heavy metal, but I've noticed a lot of movies recently, whenever they have involved heavy metal, I have really enjoyed, I can't remember the name of it, but there was like a horror supernatural movie that involved characters who were really obsessed with heavy metal. Hopefully Andre will put it in the notes. But Metal Lords is more of a coming of age story that almost feels like it could have been a coming of age novel before it was made into a film. That's how rich it feels. Metal Lords is about two teenagers, one who is a hunter who has a distant father. His mother died or left the family at a young age, who is obsessed with heavy metal, everything heavy metal, and wants to start a band, and is obsessed with a former student who won Battle of the Bands and then went on to form his own band. And his best friend, Kevin, who's a little more, I would say, shy, introverted, but is really good at drums and is even on the school band, who he kind of forces into this life. And Kevin has never really been into heavy metal until kind of he's forced to for this Battle of the Bands. And he ends up meeting a girl, Emily, who I can't remember if it's from England, Ireland, or Scotland she comes from. And, she has a bipolar disorder. And they slowly bond actually over the music as, she is a band member also. And as his relationship with her deepens, Hunter obviously gets jealous because he's straight edge, no distractions. And he sees he's losing his best friend, the only person he cares about, to this girl. And a lot of things after that happened, but I was really won over by this film. It's written by one of the writers, actually, of Game of Thrones, of all things. And it's directed by Peter Sellette, who has directed a lot of good films, including Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, which if you haven't seen, definitely check it out. And he gets all the tenderness, but he doesn't exactly shy away from teenage emotions like sex, romance, popularity. And he manages to bring it all in under a film that is rated R, but if I had a teenager, I'd have no problem with them watching because it's not exploitive. It's not really over the top or in bad taste. And I really enjoyed this film more than I expected to.
Yeah, it was a charming movie. It reminded me of School of Rock, maybe even a little bit of Detroit Rock City. The kid from It, he's the one who's on the marching band. I thought he gave a very convincing performance. He kind of reminded me of like some of my friends that I had in high school that were like big into heavy metal. And it's just a charming film. The little love angle of him and the foreign girl that joins the band. And that's what I really remember about it. I just remember it was like a likable movie. It wasn't like something I would go and watch again, but I thought, especially if you have an appreciation for, Ozzy Osbourne and that whole heavy metal scene in the 70s and 80s, you would definitely be into this movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's a coming of age film, and there is even a scene where we see a group of legendary, heavy metal band members come together in a fantasy. And a surprise, cameo by an actor who you wouldn't expect in this movie, which was enjoyable, who plays a vital role. Like you said, overall, the movie is charming, It's a perfect Sunday movie, something not too offensive, puts a smile on your face at the end of the day. You know totally what's going to happen, but you want to see how we're going to get there, And another film which I recommend, it's on Netflix. I know what you're thinking, but it's one of the good ones. Mm-hmm. We have all these teen movies coming from Netflix that, are more romantic and gushy. This has that same quality, only it's good. And doesn't let melodrama and romance overtake the whole story. Going from that, we go to a violent children's story. with another horror film from 2020 that just recently became available on Shudder that we just saw, which is called The Boy Behind the Door, directed and written by David Charbonnier and Justin Powell. This film, again, I went into totally blind. I just liked the title and the poster, so I gave it a chance, and boy, was I not ready for what it came from it. It doesn't have a lot of cast members, but and obviously it has a lower budget, but what it does with what it has is amazing. Like these, like after seeing this film, I would give these guys somewhat of a budget to see what they could do with a more, I guess, what they could do with more money, because the child actors are good, the actors are good, and they work with a sense of dread, but also a sense of mystery to it all. Even though it has the thing I cannot stand in films, fingernails being either pulled or falling off or anything. I cannot stand that in a movie. It just disgusts me. But I didn't let that totally, affect me and my assertion of the film. What did you think of The Boy Behind the Door, Andre?
My expectations at first were kind of little to nothing, because it was one of those movies that you see like on a VOD channel, and you think it's probably just like these cheaply made films. But I was shocked how much I enjoyed it. You know, it had that kind of scare factor where you thought maybe it was a pedophile that took these kids and locked them in his house. And then maybe like 25 minutes into the movie, it looks like they stopped the guy. Like, oh, now it's over, they could escape. And then you had that extra twist with the real kidnapper, who's this female, and it was like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. And like you said, the performances of the kids were just natural, phenomenal. There's mystery as well as some jump scares, and those moments where you think there's going to be like that ray of light and then there's not. And it just, I think, all across the board, it was just solid storytelling. The only thing where I think it fell short was just the ending. I thought the ending was a little too magical for me for the last moment of how it all gets resolved. Other than that, I would put it up there with like Cohen and Tate with Roy Scheider as one of those movies that you don't know nothing about it going in, and then you're shocked how much it still etches in your mind after that, just by the simplicity of, from a kid's perspective, what they have to go through to survive a dangerous situation.
Exactly, because like you said, once you think they're home free, there's another challenge before we even see the real kidnapper, with the collar. And then you have what was really effective was when they introduced the second kidnapper, how you never see their face. So you think it's like this one type of character. Then when it's revealed and it's like, this is a totally different type of character, and sharp-eyed viewers will recognize who that character is from True Blood, so they'll know their true nature. But I just was like amazed by what, no offense to Shudder, for this being a Shudder film, it was very impressive.
Yes.
Without being excessively violent or international, it was like, how did this movie, which has been out since 2020, fly so under the radar that nobody really knows how good this movie is?
And it's simple to follow, and you're invested in the young boy who, to me, every moment, you're like deeply cheered for this kid to find a way out. Like, you don't really get that a lot in certain films like this these days. So I got to give kudos to these directors for really directing some strong kid performances here.
Exactly. This is like an Amblin movie amped up to R.
Yeah.
And it's also a movie where no one is safe. You think, oh, there are certain rules in movies. This can't happen to that character. And this film is like, well, actually it can. So it keeps you on your toes. And that is the thing I like most about certain films. It's a film where you can't necessarily always guess what's going to happen, and no one can truly be ruled out like they're going to make it. And it's like, no, whoops, But like I said, I highly recommend The Boy Behind the Door. Definitely give it a chance to all of you out there. Do you have anything else to say about The Boy Behind the Door?
Other than if you have Shudder, definitely watch it. I highly recommend this one.
Okay, and we come to our final review. I guess the film this week that has the most big name cast in it. We take a look at Hustle with Adam the Sandman Sandler. This is a dramedy because there's a good part of comedy, but it's more dramatic, where Adam Sandler plays basically a scout for the Philadelphia 76ers who's tired of the road, and he's promised by the owner an assistant coaching gig, but damn it, Father Time! The owner dies, and it's left to his son, who's already not a fan of the Sandman. So he says he's best at scouting. So if he can find him like that, one of the greatest picks that'll make the 76ers on top, he can have the assistant coaching job. And he ends up finding, Bo Cruz, this Latin superstar who works construction. And basically it becomes like Rocky, where Adam Sandler's Mickey trying to train this guy to be, just to make it to a professional team. And then every turn, something happens, that strikes it down, but then there's still potential for more. This movie, every other character is played by a real life NBA star. I'm not that into basketball, but even I was like, hey, that's that person. Hey, that's that person. Hey, that's that person. And this is another surprise from Sandler because it's more of a dramatic role, but it shouldn't be that surprising, being of note that he loves basketball so much. So obviously this is where his passion lies, and it's not an uncut gems type of performance, but it is a strong performance where you can tell he's doing what he's supposed to do as an actor, but he's also clearly enjoying himself in this movie. And it's a movie that does not have any of his usual co-stars and friends in the film, except for maybe a cameo from Shaq as himself. And he has Queen Latifah as his leading lady, his wife in the film. It works. It doesn't seem as outrageous as I just said. It's an enjoyable movie, even when you know how it's going to end. There are those moments where you're like, oh no, what's going to happen? Or, where you're emotionally invested enough that you're like, you care about the fate of these characters. And other than Queen Latifah being in the movie, one of my favorite things in this movie is the most disappointing. Ben Foster. Because he has nothing to do. So he doesn't bring any charisma, any special thing to his villainous role through the movie. But it is nice to see Robert Duvall in a movie, even if it is for 5 minutes, I will say that probably shocked the hell out of me the most in this movie. I kind of was hoping somewhere John Turturro would come out of somewhere and play his role from He Got Game as a coach or something. But like I said, it's a very satisfying movie. It's a crowd-pleasing movie. What did you think of Hustle, and Andre?
This was a better version of My Giant with Billy Crystal. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Story-wise, it's nothing new. We've kind of seen this before. Some talent agent finds a new discovery and they try to put him out to the world, but it turns out he's not as sharp as everybody else, so he tries to sharpen him up. We've seen that before. But this film still works because, again, it's a more subdued Adam Sandler performance where he's still funny, but it's more natural, like what you saw, not necessarily in Uncut Gems, but like a movie like Spanglish or, more of his, or even Punch Drunk Love, where it's just more of a downplayed performance that's more real and more natural. And, who's the basketball player that was in the film?
Juancho Hernangomez.
Yeah, Gomez was likable. He didn't have to stretch too much in terms of acting, because you bought into his character. You bought into the idea that he just wanted to be somewhat there for his daughter, and like every time he can't focus on the court, it's always going back to the family. So it's nice to see, like, he has some emotional range that doesn't feel like it's overplayed. And I agree about Ben Foster. I felt like at times he was wavering between being a prick and being, not as unlikable as that type of character normally would be in a movie like this. I didn't care for the Queen Latifah stuff. And it's not because
really?
I just felt like there was no purpose other than to give Adam Sandler a family life and to have the daughter. And the daughter was more interesting because at least, you saw she had a little interest and, had this other career going on as a filmmaker, following everybody. So, that part I like, but the Queen Latifah stuff, I think they could have cut down on. That's where I fast forwarded parts of the movie. Other than that, I enjoyed it just from the storyline standpoint, from the performances. And even the way it resolves itself at the end was a nice twist. It wasn't the cliche like you normally would see, like in a Disney sports movie.
Well, see, I had no problem with the Queen Latifah, but I'm a Queen Latifah fan. And hey, at least she's not playing a private contractor solving crimes on the street after her government job, after time from her government job. So I'd rather her be here. And you also got to keep in mind, she's from Philadelphia. So it's like kind of a little hometown thing. I do
but
not remember.
Did just right with the New Jersey Nets.
Hey! I don't like Common either, but I like that movie.
The former New Jersey.
Yes. Don't remind me, okay? Don't get me started on Brooklyn Nets, okay? The 76ers and the Nets will always be New Jersey teams to me, and I like that it was the 76ers. It wasn't some made up team like, hey, we are the Chicago, I don't know, Bulldogs or something like that. One misleading thing in the credits, Anthony Edwards. I'm sitting there like,
yeah, what the fuck?
I was like, the ball dude, who's he playing? And then it was like, oh no, Anthony Edwards is the name of the basketball player who's playing Kermit.
He's gonna have problems with SAG over that,
He should have put Anthony E. Edwards or something, because I'm just like, because I'm sitting here the whole movie like, when's Anthony Edwards gonna show up?
That's like me watching New Jack City. Like, where's Vanessa Williams? Oh, the other Vanessa Williams.
Exactly. I'm just sitting here like, where's this guy coming? He must have a really important role. He hasn't been in the movie so far. It's like, is he gonna be the guy who's just like, I'll take him? I mean, no offense to Ben Foster. Anthony Edwards could have played the Ben Foster role. Okay. And probably been a little bit more memorable. And even though he is as tall as a basketball player. But anyway, another thing, I'm trying to think of my other points when it comes to this movie. The basketball scenes were shot very lively, not one of those things where it seemed typical. And it lives up to the title with the hustle of the whole thing. I still support, Queen Latifah being in the movie, but it gave also the film a little more weight, because he's basically risking his family's livelihood on this kid. The family thing, that was cute. It gave again the character something to strive for and not to quit and just be like, I'm going back to construction.
But I also like how there was like that setup there where the star player that they want to draft, like he sees the daughter on the stands and then starts to like dig into him at the moment where you think this guy's going to make his breakthrough in front of the scouts, and then he totally screws it up for him.
Exactly. Well, another hurdle, because I can tell you, there's no way in hell I could do any of those workouts. This is looking at the thing. And I like that they found a way to incorporate Adam Sandler's wardrobe into the movie yet again. So, again, he ain't getting too dressed up in this. But, like I said, this makes up for, probably the next 2 or 3 bad Netflix movies he'll make for kids, original comedies. So,
the Sardines are going to work with him again. So we got that to look forward to.
I mean, who's really on Adam Sandler's enemy list? Like, no way, not him.
Yeah, no, he's likable. It's just those movies could be, they're not like, it's not bulletproof, but it's not Happy Gilmore either.
Well, considering the way, you're thinking, wait, Adam Sandler in a basketball movie, this could have easily been Joanna Man too. Hey, he did Jack and Jill in drag, so but obviously we are both recommending go watch Hustle on Netflix. It's worth watching, especially for an Adam Sandler movie. So, unfortunately, we have so much more business to do, but that brings an end to this episode's business. But before we go, I have to ask, have you seen Just One of the Guys? If not, why not? Because it's fucking awesome. Andre, what movie do you want the folks to go see?
I'll recommend one I've seen most recently. Have you seen Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe? If not, why not? Because it's fucking awesome.
Well, I haven't seen it, so but that ends our business for this week. So we will see you next time.